Hi, hello, it's me, Shadow Retro, that's the one. Okay, so this video has been a long time in the making, literally 2 weeks, mostly because of procrastination. I did procrastinate for like a week and a half, but also because I had some file issues, let's say that, some issues with USB transferring files from my PC to my Mac, blah 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 blah. All drama, not important, right? But I had a few issues, not really. It was mostly procrastination why this video didn't exist 2 weeks earlier. But I finally came around to edit it, and first of all, I sound dead in the video, like the past me, where you're gonna hear me. From 2 weeks ago me sounds like super drained and super dead, so I wanted to make this little intro separate because I sound dead. I was probably just tired when I recorded it. I don't know what happened there. So that was cool. And second of all, I wanted to also shout out a few other things that I do. I have another YouTube channel that's in the description. I'm pretty sure Past Me talks about that previously. Talks about that in the outro, so I'll let Past Me talk about that in more detail. And I also have the link to my clan's Discord, my Warframe clan's Discord. I am the Warlord, I'm in charge of it. So if you're interested in joining our clan, do chuck in the Discord and ask for an invite, or if you just want to hang out in the Discord and chat with some chill people, also you're free to do that, even if you don't want to join the clan. So that will also be in the description if you want to look at that. But yes, I do have another build video with you covering this build, and I hope you do enjoy it. So let's get straight into the video. Bye bye. Actually, not bye bye, because you're just gonna see me, but in the video. So bye bye to current / future me. Hello to past me? Question mark? Who knows, right? Hello and welcome, my name is Shadow Retro, and today I will be bringing you my new Gyre build. But obviously, like all my other Warframe guide videos, before we get into the build, let's first discuss Gyres Kit. Gyre's passive will give all of her abilities a flat 10% critical chance on enemies for every electricity status effect that is currently on them. Her abilities will have a 2x critical multiplier, and the critical chance will cap out at 300%. With the passive alone, you'll need 30 electricity status procs to be red critting. Though, obviously, there's one of her abilities that will help you make red critting with her a bit more easy. Helminth abilities do not benefit from her passive. Gyre's first ability is Arc Sphere. Gyre will throw out a sphere with an arcing trajectory. Once it makes contact, it will explode, dealing electricity damage to all enemies within this area. After it explodes, it creates a dome that will deal constant electric damage to enemies that enter it or are already in its area. The ability will apply electric status procs on enemies, making it synergize with Gyre's passive. Gyre's second ability is Coil Horizon. Gyre will throw a sphere with an arcing trajectory that will bounce around for 2 seconds. After 2 seconds, or after the ability is recasted, it will implode, grouping enemies together, dealing electricity damage. And of course, enemies receive the electricity status effect, synergizing with Gyre's passive. Gyre's third ability is called Kathos Grace. Casting the ability will grant Gyre 3 buffs. The first one will give Gyre a critical chance buff for her weapons that is additive with other critical chance mods. The second one will give her a flat critical chance buff for her abilities, which is additive with her passive. This means that the requirement of the amount of electricity status effects you need on enemies to fully red crit with Gyre will be lowered. And finally, Gyre will also gain an energy regen over time while the ability is activated. The ability has a short duration to begin with, but each time Gyre kills an enemy, the duration will increase per kill. The ability also has a 60-second cooldown. However, the cooldown starts the second the ability is activated, not when the ability runs out. This means depending on how long the ability lasts for, you could only be slapped with a 40-second cooldown, a 20-second cooldown, or no cooldown at all, as long as the ability lasts long enough. Gyre's fourth ability is Erode Swell. Gyre will create a ring around her that will do constant electricity damage with a 100% status chance to enemies within the ring. Inflicting a critical hit with Gyre's weapons or abilities will create a discharge that does more damage and chains to up to 5 enemies and extends beyond the ring. While Rotoscell is active, Gyre will also gain a movement speed buff. Gyre has an augment for her third ability, which affects her fourth ability, named Catho's Current. While Gyre's third ability is activated, killing enemies will increase the duration of your fourth ability by the same amount that your third ability gets increased by. Furthermore, if you kill an enemy, the fourth ability will send out an additional discharge that will do 200% of the damage. Now that you understand Gyres Kit a bit better, to truly understand the build and why I've set it up a bit way, we need to understand Gyre and how her kit works together in a bit of a more broad and also more detailed sense. I know it's confusing, right? First of all, her passive makes Gyre one of the most unique Warframes in the game, as it allows her to deal crit damage with her abilities. Second of all, the Cathode Grace and Rotoswell synergy with the Augment Catho's Current makes Gyre really powerful and really capable of nuking. However, for this to work, she needs an armor strip. The ability just simply doesn't do enough damage without an armor strip. In addition to this, Gyre also has survivability issues, as she doesn't have any really way of keeping herself alive. Since the shield rework back in October, she is much better at this, as you can just make her a shield tank, especially because she has quite a lot of shields. However, to do so, you need at least 3 mods, that being Redirection, Adaptation, and Fast Reflection, along with Arcane Aegis, since Gyre doesn't have any native shield regen on her own. And you simply just don't have the mod space to slot on these mods. So, again, brings back the issue of having survivability issues. This, of course, is fixed by Pillage, and why Pillage is so popular for Gyre, and why you'll basically see everyone use Pillage on Gyre, because Pillage covers the armor strip, making her fourth ability absolutely wipe the floor with enemies, and it also keeps her alive by replenishing her shields. My build doesn't use Pillage at all. In fact, I wanted to break the norm when it comes to Gyre, and go a bit different. Gyre, since the Augment came out, has been considered a running a nuke Warframe. You cast your third and you cast your third and your fourth once at the start of the match, and then just cast Pillage as much as needed, and you nuke everything. But Gyre is also a pretty good weapon platform thanks to the critical chance you get from Catho's Grace. Plus, critting with your weapons will also expel the discharge from Rotoswell, making it do more damage. You don't actually need to crit with your abilities, you can also crit with weapons. Making a build setup where Gyre is both a weapon platform and a nuke. Quite an interesting concept. And you see, that's exactly what I've done. Introducing Dark Influence Gyre. So, what is Dark Influence Gyre? What is this build? Well, it's pretty simple. It's a melee influence build using Amalgam Argonak Meta Augur with the Rakna Dagdagger. So, why exactly have I done this setup? Well, the Rakna Dagdagger has a unique trait. Whenever you deal damage to enemies that are inflicted by the radiation status effect, you will leech shields of them depending on how much damage you do to them. This is where Gyre's survivability comes from, as all I have to do is attack with my dagger and I'll get my shields back, eliminating the need for Pillage. Then, if you're not familiar with melee influence, let me explain this quickly. Melee influence on melee electricity status effect will have a chance to apply other elemental melee status effects applied by this weapon to all enemies within 20 meters for 18 seconds. Meaning I can mass apply status effects to enemies all around me as long as I'm consistently placing electricity status effects. Which is why we have set up this weapon to do gas and electric damage, and you'll see that the weighting for gas and electricity is exactly the same. Why gas and electricity? Gas and electricity are both really powerful against armor-stripped enemies, as gas and electricity are AoE status effects, meaning the more enemies that are around, the more damage they do. Gas will also have further synergy with this build, which I'll get to in a bit. So let's break down what this build is. Obviously, we have Condition Overload for our base damage, and Weeping Ruins for our status chance. That's very important, giving us 480% status chance at 12 times combo. Blood Rush also giving us 480% crit chance at 12 times combo. And then Organ Shatter for that nice critical damage. On top of that, we have Berserker Fury for our attack speed, and then we have our two 60/60 mods applying heat and toxic, giving us status chance but also giving us gas damage. And then we have Shocking Touch giving us electricity damage. And like I said, these work out to have the exact same proc rating. That's because we want to use gas as our main DPS source, but we also want to make sure we're proccing electricity so we can actually activate melee influence so we can spread those gas procs to enemies in a mass area. So we've already talked about how Gyro needs armor strip and how the Raknadag Dagger build needs armor strips, so gas damage can do so much damage. Where are we getting the armor strip from if we're not using pillage? Well, that's simple. We're getting it from this mod right here, Amalgam Argonak Metal Auger. Whenever you deal damage to enemies with a dagger, their armor is reduced. Funny enough, gas clouds count as melee dagger hits if they came from a melee dagger. And they also count as a melee dagger hit if they come from a dagger's melee influence. So you can activate melee influence and then spread those gas clouds to a wide amount of enemies in within 20 meters, and all those enemies will have their armor stripped thanks to this gas status effect. So you'll be armor stripping enemies in a massive area just by having this mod. We also have Amalgam Serration on my Argonak build because it gives us additional utility by giving us sprint speed. The rest of the mod setup literally doesn't matter except for primary dexterity, which we'll get to later on in the video. As long as you have Amalgam Argonak Metal Auger, which of course only works on the weapon Argonak, you will have your dagger armor stripping enemies within 20 meters simply by just attacking enemies. Next up, we have the Companion build. We are using Durga, which I use as my primer, thanks to Arc Coil and Manifold Bond. Arc Coil will send out electricity procs to enemies every 5 seconds. Manifold Bond will apply the status effect on the Sentinel's weapons every time the Sentinel activates one of its abilities. In addition to this, killing enemies with 3 or more status effects will reduce their Companion's abilities by 3 seconds. Manifold Bond will lower Arc Coil's duration, so it's basically nothing since it's already only 5 seconds. And then Arc Coil will consistently proc over and over again. And each time it does proc, Manifold Bond will apply the status effects from our weapons on enemies, priming enemies for us. We also have Tenacious Bond, which will give us that extra 1.2 critical damage for our weapon. Momentumous Bond, which will reduce the recovery time for our companion each time we kill an Eximus. Or if the companion is around, it will give our companion an additional element for even more priming. Guardian, just in case our shields break so they can get fully restored. Regen, to make it so our companion can come back faster when it dies. Synth Deconstruct, to drop additional health orbs. And also to give us holster speed. It's just a generally very good utility mod to have. Enhanced Vitality and Capital Redirection are for our companion's survivability. And of course Vacuum for, well, read it. Yeah, pretty simple. The companion weapon we'll be using is the Volcax. The reason why is because it is one of only 2 companion weapons that can reach above 50% critical chance with just simply modding on critical delay in order to give us that critical damage buff from Tenacious Bond. In addition to that, it is modded for radiation, but corrosive, and heat damage. Why corrosive? Well, this will make our companion also spread corrosive procs, which will armor strip enemies by 80%, meaning we will be armor stripping enemies even faster when synergizing with Amalgam Argonak Metal Auger, so we can kill enemies even faster. Then we have Heat, because Heat is just an additional status effect we can mod on for a weapon, and also it offers some crowd control. And then Radiation. Radiation is the important one. Raknadag Dagger does do radiation damage, meaning it itself can proc radiation on enemies. However, if you remembered back from when I showed you the Gyre build, you'll see that it does a lot less radiation damage than electricity and gas, meaning it is unlikely to proc radiation that much. Our companion is then used to make sure that we have constant irradiation procs on enemies, so every strike we have on an enemy will restore our shields, as it is our main source of survivability. And this finally brings us to the Gyre build. And hey, look! I have Prime Sure-Footed on this build. Yes, I do have Prime Sure-Footed on some Warframes. The Warframes that I like the most are the ones that get Prime Sure-Footed. Corrosive Projection. Honestly, I am debating swapping that to Energy Siphon right now, just for some more energy economy. Not that you really need it, but I guess Corrosive Projection will make it so that you armor strip enemies even faster. So again, the Corrosive status procs Amalgam Argonak Metal Auger plus Corrosive Projection all together isn't really needed, so just run whatever aura mod you want. Our Arcanes, of course, Arcane Energy for energy economy. Arcane Energize is just a fantastic Arcane. Molt Augmented for 60% additional ability strength on 250 kills, which we'll get pretty quickly with this build. And that brings us to the main build. Well, we want a few things with this build. Of course, the first thing is we want survivability. Prime Redirection, normal redirection will work fine if you don't have Prime Redirection, giving us that max shields, taking us above 1115 shields, meaning our period of vulnerability from our shield gate is 2.5 seconds, which is very nice. And Adaptation, which will give us 90% damage reduction, which will of course stack multiplicatively with the 50% damage reduction that shields get natively, giving you a 95% damage reduction on your shields. This is a shield tank build using Arachne Dagger to replenish our shields, and Adaptation as our main source of damage reduction. Gathos Current is of course needed for the whole setup, as it is Gyro's best in slot augment, mostly because it's our only augment, but also you just really want this on any Gyro build. And then for Gyro, you also want to make sure you have a good amount of range. That's why we'll be using Archon Stretch along with Orcal Reach. Archon Stretch instead of regular Stretch, because we will be able to benefit from its additional effect, giving us energy regen over time each time we proc an electricity status effect from our abilities, which all of Gyro's abilities do. Then we have Primed Continuity for ability duration. Now, Prime duration isn't needed for Gyro at all, because with the augment, both her third and fourth ability will gain duration on per kill. However, the Helminth ability we are using does want duration, so we have Prime Continuity for a tiny bit of duration. And then we have Blind Rage and Umbral Intensify for our ability strength, as we will be doing both killing with our abilities with the Gyre's Rod as well, and also our melee dagger. So it is a bit of a hybrid build in there. Speaking of our Helminth ability is Raw. Raw for two reasons. First of all, Raw acts as a faction damage buff for weapons. This means that I didn't have to mod for a faction damage buff on my Arachne Dagger. Faction damage buffs are very good, especially when it comes to status effects builds, as it double dips with status effects. This means it is applied twice for status effects, which will increase the damage our electricity and gas status effects from our Arachne Dagger do by a lot. Additionally though, Raw acts as a damage buff for our abilities, meaning Raw will be increasing the amount of damage that Road as well does, and this damage buff is multiplicative with Power Strength. To offer some additional utility, we do have Primary Dexterity and Secondary Dexterity. This is a melee focused build, so we will of course be using Primary Dexterity and Secondary Dexterity for the extra 7.5 combo duration from each of them, giving an additional 15 total. We will also be using the Focus School Naramon for the Power Spike passive, which will make the combo counter only drop by 5 points instead of completely each time you run out of combo duration, meaning you're making your combo counter a lot easier to manage. Next up is the issue of how do we get enough energy to start our damage rotation at the beginning of the match. Well, there's a few ways you can do this. The most simple way of doing this is simply just dropping an energy pad. You could also mod a yellow Archon Shard on Gyre to give her increased energy on spawn. Or you can do what I did, which was use a Zartar's Invigoration Grimbar. At the start of the mission, I just find a group of enemies and activate the Grandma's Odd Fire to give my Gyre energy regen over time, which will give her enough energy to set up her damage rotation. Once her damage rotation is set up, she'll get enough energy regeneration from Archon Stretch along with the buff that she gets from her third ability, so you'll never have to really use this ability, Zartar's Invigoration, on your Grandma ever again, or really ever touch your Grandma again. You'll just be able to go around meleeing enemies with your Rakta Dagger. Obviously, we also have Amalgam Barrel Diffusion on this build for additional utility with dodge speed. The Archon Shards that we will be using for this setup will of course be 2 casting speed Amber Archon Shards, reason being that her third ability and her fourth ability both have really slow casting speeds, so we want to speed up the casting speed with 2 Amber Shards, and then 2 Azula Shards for energy max. This basically makes it so we don't have to mod for Prime Flow on our actual build. Basically, you don't actually need that much max energy for Gyre because you simply just need to cast her third and fourth once, and then roar every now and then. And because she has pretty good energy economy, you really don't need that much energy because you don't cast abilities that much. So Prime Flow isn't necessary, but we still want some more energy, which is where we use Azula Archon Shards. That's basically all the builds that you need for this setup. Basically, the damage rotation is very simple. Run into a match, activate the Alt Fire on the Rumor, and start killing enemies with the Rakta Dagger. As your energy comes, activate Rotoswell first, and then activate Catho's Grace. The reason why you activate Rotoswell first is because Rotoswell doesn't have a 60-second cooldown. So if you don't kill enemies efficiently enough when Catho's Grace is activated, you're gonna run into a bit of an issue. But with Rotoswell and Catho's Grace activated at the same time, plus all the damage you'll be doing with your melee, you're sure to get tons of kills, enough to build up your duration for the 2 abilities. And then of course, once you're gain enough energy, just use Roar. And then all you have to do throughout the match is continue attacking enemies with your melee weapon, and your melee weapon, thanks to melee influence, will be mass armor stripping enemies and killing enemies, plus Rotoswell will be mass killing enemies alongside it. And then just simply cast Roar whenever it runs out to get that damage buff for both Rotoswell and also Rakta Dagger. It is a very powerful setup, and it is a lot of fun to play with, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving me a like, and tell me in the comments if you want to see any specific Warframe builds, or want to see any other tutorial guides, or any video from me at all, and I'll see what I can do. Or you can just write whatever you want in the comments, and I'll read it anyway. I read all my comments, and I may respond to you. Maybe send me a nice message. You know, just be a nice guy and send me a nice message. I do hope you learned something from this video, as that is my main priority when I make these videos. I want to help teach people how to better understand this game and how to better play through this game. So I do really hope you learned something in this video. I also now officially have a second YouTube channel called Shadow Retro Let's Plays that will be in the description below. The second YouTube video is basically for when I want to play something that isn't Warframe and upload it, but not have it affect the Warframe content that I'll be posting on this channel. Right now, I already have 2 videos of me and my friends playing Astroneer together, and I will be soon to be posting additional videos such as We Need to Go Deeper, playing some board games with them, and Tabletop Simulator, and some other fun stuff like that. So do check out my second channel as well if you want to look at some Let's Play content along with some of my Warframe content. But until next time, bye bye!